Why don't you just throw your money at the dealer and have done? Oh, but it's not your money, is it? I ignored him, or tried to. Blood had soaked through the man's combat jacket, staining the webbing and painting half his side and leg dark as it dripped down onto the garish red and gold patterned carpet. It had been a while since I'd seen Johnson. He was easily the most vocal of my visitors, and definitely the most annoying. "Oh, would you look at that?" Johnson muttered, in a voice loud enough to carry as he noted the puddle of blood beside his foot and the lurid red streak he'd left on the white wall. "I'm making a right mess of the place." Johnson always was a prick. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. The smell was coming back. It usually did when I had visitors. Dust and hot plastic. The dust had been everywhere, every day, no matter where you went. It was part of the air, working its way under your clothes, in between your teeth, under your eyelids, until there was no escaping the feel of it. The plastic smell came from the cars sat in the sun, the frames of the windows melting in the unrelenting heat. There were other smells, of course, sweat and my own kit, food and coffee coupled with spices, but it was the dust and hot plastic that sticks with me. The smell of Kabul. I shoved myself up out of the seat. I'd been sitting for a few hours and my legs weren't the steadiest, but that's only the half of it, if I was being honest. It took all the control I had just to snatch up the handful of chips I had left and lurch away from the table into the maze of slot machines. The smell followed me, clinging to my nostrils until the taste of the dust seemed to coat my tongue. The yelling would come next, I knew that, along with the gunshots and the screams. I doubt I was a pretty sight as I stumbled down the line of slot machines, leaning on the chairs as my balance left me. A couple stood talking in the middle of the row, but I barely slowed as I shoved my way past. "Drunk bastard!" one of them called after me. The toilet was empty, which was something at least. I leaned heavily on the counter as one hand worked the tap. The cold water didn't help, but I'd known it wouldn't. There was a cycle to this, a pattern. I was a hostage to this once it began. I was a prisoner to the visions that would follow. I closed my eyes as the first gunshots rang out. As the blood flowed, the screaming began, and the scene played on. The pleading filled the casino bathroom, the shouts echoing off tiles that hadn't even been there at the time and making the shouting all the louder for it. The hand landed heavy on my shoulder, which is never a good idea. I've had too much training to just turn it off. I was moving before I'd thought. "I think you've had enough, mate. Time." The security guard cut off as I grabbed his wrist, ducking under his arm and twisting smoothly into the lock as my thumbs drove into the pressure point on the back of the man's hand. "Fuck me!" He was a big man. Security guards in these places usually were, but he sank to his knees instantly as I held the pressure. Choices. It would be simple enough to kick to the face here, with a fair chance of putting the guy out. An elbow strike would break his arm easily. A quick wrench would dislocate his shoulder. Neutralize the threat, disarm, move on. The thought brought me back to myself. There was no threat here. I stepped back, dropping his hand. "Sorry, mate, you surprised me is all." I moved before I thought. "Bastard!" the man muttered, shaking out his wrist. "Time you pissed off while you've still got some teeth." "Who are you kidding, mate?" I raised an eyebrow as I looked the man over. He was a big guy, far too big for his suit, really. It was a stupid thing for a bouncer or any kind of guard to wear, too restrictive. But then he wasn't here to lay hands on people. He was here to look big and intimidating, a paid bully. His toughest job was probably herding the drunks and hookers to the door. "I'm going," I muttered, backing away from the guy as he reached for his phone. The night was windy as I made my way out of the Stratford Westfield complex.